Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on or will watch this video of this stream during the day or maybe tomorrow. Today is 27th of August. Now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media pays attention to and Russian public. Hopefully, you will find the news segment interesting and they're useful. And if so, dear friends, please help me to deal with their algorithm and like the video. And if you by chance are watching this video in a recording when comment section is open, please leave some commentary just about anything. More comments and likes should help to deal with their algorithm, especially if you keep in mind that my channel is in strict shadow ban, especially on YouTube, by the way. And even better if you can switch to my Rumble channel, by the way, and watch video there, because on Rumble, after all, my channel is monetized there. Also, dear friends, after a new segment, as always, I will join community chatter and for a little while, and hopefully there will be some questions from super chat. Also, although I'm going to react on any question or comment that I see in that short time, if they are directed to me, of course, right? Please use capital letters in your question. That will make it easier to spot. And yes, if you want to, if you like this work, by the way, that I do, if you like my channel, so if you want to help me to maintain this project, keep it alive, then please consider to support. You can do it with donations through PayPal or Boosty. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or Boosty page. Very important stuff, by the way. Our Patreon and Boosty communities definitely keep this project alive. Although to be in a safe place, our community have to double there. And this process is very slow, by the way, very slow. So if you can, please subscribe to my Patreon and Boosty pages. You can choose your level of support there from $5, and then it's up to you. You have a choice there, monthly supporter. That is also, you can use crypto to support. And as I said, during the live streams, because I'm streaming on both channels, on YouTube and Rumble simultaneously, you can use super chat feature on Rumble for support, and you can subscribe also. You can become premium subscriber on Rumble. Of course, everything counts, by the way, when it comes to maintaining this project. So yes, that's being said, let's start with the new segment. And as I said, there is a lot to unpack, dear friends. But first of all, let me give you a report about work of Russian air defense systems past night. So RIA Novosti, based on Russian Defense Ministry's latest update, is reporting that air defense systems on duty intercepted 26 drones overnight. I can give you specifics on that. So 15 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region, 4 drones in Oryol region, 3 drones in the Belgorod region, 2 each in Bryansk and the Kursk regions. In Rostov-on-Don, after the drone crash, an explosion occurred on the roof of the 4-story residential building, and the fire erupted. As a result, it was localized to an area of 250 square meters. There were no casualties by miracle, thanks to a miracle, by the way, as a result of this. Yet another terrorist attack of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers on Russian civilians. And when it comes to these terrorist attacks with the drones and so on, that NATO and their proxy regime is conducting, you remember in past days on several occasions I reported about drone strikes of our enemies in direction of Leningrad region, in direction of St. Petersburg, Ust-Luga port in Leningrad region was targeted. Infrastructure of Novatech company, I believe. And I expressed my take straight away that I think these drones were launched not from Kyiv control territory itself, but most likely, and this is my personal take, by the way, Russian officials did not make no claims about it, but I think due to distance, by the way, from Kyiv control territory to Leningrad region, areas that were attacked, it's about 900 kilometers, if not more. And I expressed my take on that most likely these drones were launched by NATO member states and their proxy regime from either territorial waters of Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, maybe Finland, or even Sweden, or from the ground of these Baltic states. And today we have at least a partial confirmation of this information, because look at this report, by the way, that began circulating on internet in past 24 hours. Ukrainian drone crashed deep inside Estonia, 80 kilometers from the Russian border. The drone crashed in Tartu County, just 30 kilometers from the border with Latvia. Local authorities investigated the crash site and confirmed the drone was not Russian. Ukraine is almost 2,000 kilometers away from Estonia, by the way, from the area that this drone was launched, definitely more than 1,000 kilometers. And is this not enough, at least indirect confirmation that these drones are launched from NATO territories? Probably there was some malfunction that this drone experienced and crashed in Estonia. Otherwise, most likely it was directed towards the Leningrad region. Let's see if Russian officials, Russian Defense Ministry, or Kremlin will make any statements about it. But I have less and less doubts, by the way, if any, that NATO countries are engaged directly in these drone attacks on Russian Federation. And I mean, they are not just providing drones themselves and their intelligence or flight path or targeting data, but they are actually using ground of their NATO countries, Estonia or Finland or whichever, right, to conduct these attacks. And no one should be surprised if suddenly Russia will take action and retaliate on military assets of countries that are involved in this terrorist activity. I guess Russian side is gathering as much information is available by now, and when there is enough evidences that these countries actually are directly engaged in attacks on Russia, then we might see some retaliatory strikes from the Russian Federation, and whole world will see all the evidences that Russia will provide that this was a retaliatory strike, not a fair strike, right? Also, dear friends, during the nighttime, Russian armed forces conducted long-range precise strikes, retaliatory strikes, on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, also energy infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, that is vital, of course, for whatever is left from military-industrial complex of this creation of the Bolsheviks that Ukraine is. And also, obviously, energy is vital for rapid deployment of Kyiv regime's forces through railway, for example. And we have this report that was published by DD Geopolitics Telegram channel just several minutes ago, that Russian militaries take action against energy and gas transportation infrastructure facilities in 6 regions controlled by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. And these regions are Sumy, Poltava, Donetsk, Chernihiv, Kharkov, and Zaporozhye. This information was reported by Kyiv regime's Ministry of Energy. In Sumy, one of their key substations was hit, leaving a significant part of the city and their industrial enterprises without power. In Poltava, gas transportation infrastructure facilities were also attacked, and everywhere else, by the way, main target was energy facilities. RIA Novosti is also reporting, and by the way, we should keep in mind that this is one might argue retaliation for constant attacks of Kyiv regime on the Druzhba pipeline that supplies oil, for example, to Hungary and Slovakia, right? And I guess other European countries too, because Hungary and Slovakia are free to resale, right? Either oil itself or oil products. Anyways, we have also interesting news from RIA Novosti that since the beginning of the year, more soldiers have fled the Ukrainian armed forces than in the previous 3 years. I can give you some numbers. So over the past 7 months, more than 110,000 Ukrainian armed forces soldiers have left their units without permission, which is more than in the previous 3 years since the start of special military operation. Ukraine Ukrainska Pravda, this is a Kiev regime's propaganda outlet, by the way, so you can easily double this number and probably would not be mistaken, right? If Kiev regime's propaganda is saying that, well, 110,000, more than that, fled the units and deserted, then the actual number probably is at least twice of that, maybe 3 times higher, right? So Ukrainska Pravda reported about it, citing an official response from the office of Prosecutor General of the so-called Ukraine. And yet again, we all know that Kiev regime's forces are experiencing massive shortage when it comes to manpower, and the situation not going to get any better. Desertion rate is tremendous. Whenever Kiev regime's troops have opportunity to either organize safe surrender, contact Russian side and organize safe surrender, they're doing it. And whenever they have opportunity to just run away from the units, they are also taking their chances. And just in the first 7 months, by the way, right, more than 110,000 soldiers of the Kiev regime run away, probably twice of that. That's quite something. That's quite something. And that's why I'm saying, by the way, that I have to agree with a number of military experts who are predicting that Kiev regime's forces are on the brink of collapse, and it might take maybe like another 2-3 months, and Kiev regime would not be able to maintain defense lines as they do, even on a poor level as they do right now. And we should expect a domino effect in terms of collapsing of these defense lines to take place. But let's see. Let's wait and see. I'm no military expert, so therefore I cannot have a strong opinion on that. RT is also reporting that ex-Ukrainian army chief louds neo-Nazi role models. Of course, members of our community from the Western countries know perfectly well what kind of elements Western elites are supporting in Kiev-controlled territory: Nazis, terrorists, mass murderers, and so on. But if by chance new members are watching this live stream right now, that only received information from Western MSM, then they might be very much surprised about what they're gonna hear right now. So, retired Ukrainian General Valery Zaluzhny, widely seen as a potential successor to Vladimir Zelensky, has called for the education programs that highlights members of the neo-Nazi Azov military unit as a role models. Can you imagine that, by the way? Azov formation, before special military operation began, by the way, even in US were designated as neo-Nazi formation, and even Western media was publishing articles after articles about these Nazis, right? But when special military operation began, Western propaganda forgot about that, right? And they are now almost completely ignoring that there is an issue of Nazism and the fascism on Kiev-controlled territory. And Valery Zaluzhny, by the way, openly, without any shame, is saying that, well, in our program, educational program, these are Azov neo-Nazi criminals should be presented as a sort of a role models and heroes. So heroization of Nazism, according to Zaluzhny, should start from the kindergarten, basically. And in many areas on Kiev-controlled territory, this process has begun, but they want this to be a state-level propaganda everywhere, constantly. That's the regime, by the way, that West is in support of. I mean, what can I say? As Ukraine's former top military commander and now ambassador to the UK, Zaluzhny is considered one of their country's most popular public figure. Polls suggest he would likely defeat Zelensky if presidential elections were held, and Western governments are reportedly counting him as a possible future leader. Dear friends, even before Zaluzhny was replaced, you remember, veterans of our community, remember I was reporting about the political ambitions of Zaluzhny. I was reporting about basically civil war between Zaluzhny's camp and Zelensky's camp. They were killing each other, by the way, literally, right? They were conducting terrorist attacks on members of each other's camps, and it was obvious that one of them had to go, right? Otherwise, they will begin deploying military formations for the clashes. And London insisted, and by the way, we should keep in mind that British secret services are basically in charge now in Kiev control territory. They are leading these Nazis. And London, who was providing security for Zaluzhny, British secret services, they basically took him into London, because to secure him, that was the easiest way, right? To take him in UK. And that's exactly what happened. They forced Zelensky to appoint him as Ukraine's ambassador into United Kingdom. Although initially, if you remember, there was reports that other personality was considered as an ambassador, but no, London insisted that it's going to be Zaluzhny, and he is serving as a so-called ambassador now. And according to reports, London did manage to persuade U.S. leadership, White House basically, to consider Zaluzhny to be a main replacement for Zelensky. Although earlier we also had reports that White House was not really okay with the leading role of UK in this proxy war, and Washington was considering other personalities as a replacement. Avakov was mentioned. Even Mayor of Kiev was mentioned as a potential successor. Some other individuals, but right now, based on reports that we are seeing, seems like Washington has been forced to submission basically on this matter by London, and both capitals, Washington and London, are considering now him to be a replacement of Zelensky. And well, you judge now, by the way, based on this information, how Moscow gonna interact with this Nazi element, Nazi mass murderer element that Zaluzhny is, right? It's not gonna be easy for anybody here in Russia to talk to this criminal, for sure. Right? He's no any better than Zelensky is. Actually, he's even worse, because he believes in this Nazi ideology. And I was reporting that Zaluzhny, by the way, is a Nazi, right? And one of the biggest supporters of the Nazis in Kiev controlled territory. So they want now heroization of the Nazism to be implemented all over their Kiev controlled territory, and from kindergarten and their school. Zgled newspaper is also reporting that Peter Szijjártó, foreign minister of Hungary, once again made some statements in regards to Kiev regime and the terrorist activity of the Kiev regime. You know, in just past several weeks, Ukrainian Nazis, with their order, I will say, from London and Brussels, twice took out Druzhba oil pipeline. And I believe right now Druzhba pipeline is not working. Still, engineers are operating there to resume the issues that is there after latest drone attacks that Kiev regime conducted a few days ago. And Budapest, Prime Minister of Hungary, and also Foreign Minister of Hungary, Orban and Szijjártó, are making statement after statement after statement on this matter. This is another one that head of Hungarian Foreign Ministry believes it is unlikely that the attacks on the Druzhba oil pipeline were carried out without coordination between Kiev and the leadership of European Union, and he is absolutely correct. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó expressed doubt that Kiev could have attacked Druzhba oil pipeline without knowledge of the European Commission and its President Ursula von der Leyen. He said it is very difficult to imagine that this issue about the attacks on the Druzhba oil pipeline will not rise between Zelensky and von der Leyen, as well as other European leaders. Szijjártó noted that Vladimir Zelensky and European leaders are often in touch and discuss many issues, which, in his opinion, makes it impossible for there to be a lack of coordination on such a major incident as an attack on strategic energy infrastructure. And he is correct yet again. I mean, Szijjártó is on point there. Of course, Brussels authorized this attack and even ordered this attack, not just authorized. And same can be said about London, by the way. Nothing happens without London's permission. Let's keep that in mind. and globalist permissions. And when it comes to globalist movement, globalist force, main force there is British aristocracy, European aristocracy and royalties in general, and their financier clans like Rothschilds and the rest of garbage, right? But a leading force among these European aristocracies is, of course, British aristocracy. By the way, don't be mistaken by propaganda that globalists want you to believe that, and British aristocracy, for example, wants you to believe that, well, British royal family is just a decoration now and has no influence, and British aristocracy is also a kind of decoration, and that's about it, right? They have no say in politics or anything like that. It's all BS, by the way. They are a major force that is in control of a globalist movement and in control of financial Western banking and the financial system. So how they are irrelevant, by the way, where they control financial flows, by the way, all over the world, right? And when they are main force in the globalist movement. So without London's authorization, nothing happens, by the way, whatsoever, in regards to the Ukrainian crisis or geopolitical stance and the policies of collective West. That's how powerful they are. And also question is rising, by the way. Okay, we all understand that Budapest is upset. Orban is making statements about these attacks, this hostility of Kyiv regime, and Brussels against Hungary. Seattle is there also making statements, but what about action? Do they really believe that these statements gonna influence anybody, either in Kyiv or in London or in Brussels or anywhere? No. So maybe it would be better if Hungary will take action. And by the way, they can. They actually are in a position to take strong actions. And I'm not just talking about military actions that they can take, but I'm talking about cutting energy supplies to Kyiv regime, also economical retaliation. And most of the energy, by the way, and most of the electricity that Kyiv regime is importing is entering Kyiv-controlled territory from Hungary, partially from Slovakia, I believe. And same goes for gas, natural gas, that enters Kyiv-controlled territory. Hungary can retaliate big time, and maybe Budapest should take some actions, because I mean, clearly no one gonna listen to their statements and warnings, right? Definitely not in Brussels, London, or the Kyiv. And more without actions, by the way. I mean, more statements that will make more cringe that will look, to say the least, right? Because action is actually needed. Also, dear friends, let me give you, but relationships between Hungary and Kyiv deteriorating for sure, and very rapidly. And one might argue that clearly we already have indicators that at some point when time is right, Budapest probably will take action, not just economical but also military. And I'm quite sure they're going to reclaim Transcarpathia region, by the way, in Western Ukraine. And when it comes to Western Ukraine, of course, we should not forget about Polish elites and their ambitions to reclaim western parts of Ukraine. Some 70% of Western Ukraine used to be Poland, by the way, and some major cities like Lvov used to be controlled by Poland. And I'm quite sure Polish elites are dreaming about reclaiming these territories. And the new president of Poland is quite active to prepare ground for potential Polish invasion of the Western Ukraine to reclaim their territories. And the new president of Poland also, in previous days, I reported about it, making quite strong statements in direction of Kyiv regime. Some steps being taken to basically strip off Ukrainian refugees from benefits that they have in Poland. Also, naturalization in Poland of elements that are supporters or being indicated to be supporters of banderites, and that is Ukrainian Nazis, will no longer have opportunity to actually get Polish citizenship, right? And today we have statements from defense minister of Poland that Warsaw is fed up with Kyiv. Let me give you some details. So Poland is done basically pretending. Polish defense minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamyz stated that if Ukraine does not come to terms with the issue of Volyn massacre, then there is no chance for Ukraine to enter the European Union. This is a stand, by the way, that Brussels was attacking Hungary for. Hungary's leadership said many times, isn't it, that they're not going to allow Ukraine to join EU, not just NATO, but EU also, because they don't see this feasible. And the Polish defense minister, by the way, is basically saying the same, that if Kyiv regime will not come to the terms with the issue of Volyn massacre, and I remind you, dear friends, that during the Second World War, Ukrainian Nazis that were collaborating with their Third Reich or Nazi Germany massacred basically over 100,000 Poles, by the way, for no reason whatsoever. Just massacred them because they were Poles there. They massacred also Jewish people. They massacred Russians, obviously, Belarusians, everybody that did not look like them, did not speak like them. And that's what Nazis do, by the way, isn't it? And Polish society, I guess, is more and more tired of this behavior of their political elites when they are kind of ignoring that Ukraine right now is run by Nazis, right? Nazi ideology is a main force there. Banderites or Ukrainian Nazis during leaders of the Ukrainian Nazi movement during the Second World War have been heroic. Painted as heroes on Kyiv-controlled territory, and society in Poland is pissed with this situation, right? When Warsaw ignores that, and lately, from a new president of Poland and also from defense minister and some other public figures, we are hearing on regular basis on statements on the topic of Volyn massacre, and I think these statements is basically done not just to calm society in Poland itself, not just for domestic use, but also to prepare ground for Poland, Polish armed forces, intelligence services to get engaged at one point militarily against Ukrainian Nazis and basically to reclaim Western Ukraine. And it's not going to be easy, by the way. It's not going to be easy task. You remember when a meeting happened between Putin and Trump in Anchorage a couple of weeks ago, one of the most disappointed sites or capitals in this world was Warsaw, and I explained why. Of course, because Polish political elites, Polish military security services would prefer all battle-capable military formations of the Kyiv regime to be decimated on the Eastern Front, so that when they will enter Western Ukraine, they will receive as little as possible resistance. So they are preparing, by the way. They are preparing, and they know perfectly well that Kyiv would not react on their statements in a way that Polish people will be pleased. Kyiv regime is basically controlled by Nazis, right? Ukrainian Nazis, and they're not going to condemn themselves or their heroes. And I remind you, dear friends, that in Kyiv-controlled territory, you will struggle to find even a single settlement where you're not going to see their street named after Bandera or Shukhevich or other Nazis or other Ukrainian Nazis. Or you're going to struggle to find a settlement where either streets or buildings or the squares, in some cases even universities, by the way, being called names of these Nazis, right? So it is factual that it's a state policy there, heroization of their Nazis. So obviously Ukrainian Nazis cannot and will not bow down to Polish demands, right? Polish elites know this perfectly well, and while making these strong statements towards the Kyiv, all they do is preparing ground for invasion of the Western Ukraine. And I said many times before, once this conflict will end, Western Ukraine most likely will be reclaimed by Western neighbors of this so-called Ukraine. That is Poland, first of all, of course, Hungary and Romania. Although, by the way, Slovakia might have some claims, even Bulgaria might have some claims, and Belarus might have some claims, by the way, right? On Western Ukraine. Rest of the territory is Russian territory, historical Russian territory, and have to be in Russia, by the way, or at least in a sphere of exclusive Russian influence, completely free from influence of the West. And that's how it's gonna be, by the way. That's the destiny of this creation of the Bolsheviks, right? It existed way too long, this Ukraine, by the way. There was never in history any either kingdom or state of sort under such a name, and should never exist in the future. Russia have to take whatever is Russian, of course, and should be in control of directly or indirectly, but should be in control of Russian land and Western Ukraine, that for last number of centuries undergo tremendous changes and they're eventually, formed as a part of Poland, Hungary, Romania, and so on. Those countries should reclaim their territory too. My take, and we are moving in that direction for sure. And Hungary and Poland is also preparing the ground for what is about to happen, either in 2025 or most likely in 2026. By the way, my prediction on that, when Ukraine, this so-called Ukraine, will undergo full-scale disintegration, which is absolutely inevitable. And dear friends, a lot of news left, but before I continue, let me once again highlight that this project only exists, and these channels of mine, by the way, only exist as long as I have your support. And if you like my work, if you want to support, dear friends, you can do it through several means. You can donate. This week so far was quite weaker in terms of assistance, financial assistance. Maybe things change today, I don't know. But if you want to support, you can do it, dear friends, through PayPal platform. You can donate also through Boosty platform. Also, please consider, dear friends, to subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. It is tremendously important. Links, of course, are under this video in the description box. Also, you can use a super chat feature, by the way, during the streams on the Rumble channel to donate and also to highlight any question or the comment. And you can become premium subscriber on Rumble. Everything counts, dear friends. Everything helps me to stay in this field of news and political commentary. And of course, many thanks to everybody who supported and continues to support and keeps me in this field. Thank you very much. That's been said, dear friends, let's continue with some more news. And as I said, still a lot to unpack. And next is this report from RIA Novosti about Trump's quite a stiff reaction on Lavrov's statements about Zelensky's legitimacy. Let's see what RIA Novosti is writing about it. So US President Donald Trump responded in a sharp tone on Tuesday to the words of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov that Volodymyr Zelensky is not a legitimate person for the possible signing of the documents on the Ukrainian settlement. In an interview with the NBC News on Sunday, Lavrov said Moscow was ready to meet with Zelensky, but when it comes to signing legal documents, everyone should have a clear understanding that their signatory is legitimate. Lavrov noted that according to Ukraine's constitution, Zelensky is not one at the moment. He is not legit, which is true, by the way. This is Ukraine's constitution is saying that, not just Lavrov, by the way, right? Or any other high-ranking official here in Russia or any other commentator on our internet and so on, right? So on Tuesday, at the meeting of the U.S. administration's cabinet in the White House, journalists asked U.S. President Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to comment on the Lavrov statement. Instead of Witkoff, Trump himself answered the question. Steve could answer, but I can also answer. Trump said, it does not matter what they say. Trump is talking about Russian leadership. They are all posing. It's bullshit. Trump said, the US president then asked Witkoff if he had a different answer, and Witkoff reacted like, I agree with you. He said to Trump, which is insane, by the way. These people, do they even understand that they are high-ranking officials and the public figures? Do they understand that they cannot use this language? I can use any language I want, by the way, right? I'm not a politician. I'm not an official. And even then, by the way, whenever I go on a rant and then began using some French in my language, I'm upset about it afterwards, and I always apologize for that, right? Because I don't like it. Although, by the way, of course, commentators, citizen journalists or commentators in alternative media have much more freedom in terms of lexic that are used, right? And compared to other channels, by the way, in the alternative media, I think my language is not that bad, right? But nevertheless, even I, being just citizen journalist, by the way, that's it, right? And with the very small, tiny channels compared to big names, even I'm getting nervous whenever I become emotional and began using some words that I should not, right? And what is wrong with these people, man, in the White House or U.S. political class that are talking this way constantly and basically insulting everybody, literally, not just people that they are addressing. In this particular case, Trump insulted Russian leadership, right? But he is insulting himself too, and the audience that was right there up front of him in White House, and he's insulting just about everybody who will read this information. Why they do this? It's inappropriate, isn't it? It's just not the way presidents should talk, man. I don't know. Is this something controversial that I'm saying right now? I don't think Moscow is going to react on this yet another insult from Trump. Probably the Kremlin will ignore it, and the Russian foreign ministry too. But Trump is wrong on not just on using this language, but also while saying that Russian side is pausing while making statements that Zelensky is illegitimate. The Russian side is not pausing, by the way. Russian president, when says something, he means business. Right? And Lavrov is a foreign minister, right? It's a Russian president that forms core of Russian foreign policy, and foreign minister is there to make sure that these policies are implemented, right? And there is entire ministry there, foreign ministry of Russia, right? And a greater number of top-level diplomats. And I mean, you can say anything you want about Putin, but he's not messing around, by the way. When he says something, he means business. And therefore, topic of legitimacy of Zelensky has to be resolved one way or another. But Moscow says on numerous occasions that whoever will be signatory on whatever agreements might be reached, that signatory better be legit or had at least some level of legitimacy. And Zelensky does not. Period. And someone should explain this to Trump, man, because his statements are becoming more and more ridiculous. I mean, as time goes by. I mean, truly, even if you are a diehard Trump supporter, you will agree that, I mean, he should be briefed a little better, and he should speak with a little more cautiousness, right? Because after all, he is the president of US, for God's sake. He is not some clown in a circus, right? He is a president of United States and should not embarrass US with his crazy statements, man. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that US to back NATO members troops in Ukraine, according to Financial Times. So more and more details kind of are becoming available about the level of assistance or engagement of US in possible security guarantees for a Kyiv regime. And even though most likely none of it will be acceptable for Moscow, We have enough indicators for that already. Still, by the way, Western so-called political leaders are entertaining these topics, right? And on daily basis making some statements on deployment of their troops, no-fly zone to be introduced, and that kind of crap, right? And everyone is guessing on what level US will be engaged in this if it comes to it, right? So the US has signaled its readiness to provide support for any European-led security plan for post-conflict Ukraine. The Financial Times reported on Tuesday, citing unnamed European officials. It's always unnamed officials, by the way, some sources. They almost never say who exactly is saying that, and is this person is competent enough to have any information or any understanding on the matter. But anyways, senior US officials reportedly told their European counterparts in multiple discussions that Washington would be prepared to contribute strategic enablers to back up potential EU-led deployment of their on the ground. Four sources briefed on their talks told their newspapers, so four sources unnamed, that the US will back European NATO ground troops. Their potential assistance could include US aircraft, logistics, and ground-based radar supporting and enabling European enforced no-fly zone and air shield for their country. And this is very serious, by the way. This is very serious because no-fly zone is going to be acceptable, by the way, for Russian side. No ground troops of NATO, no any troops of NATO, by the way, on Kyiv-controlled territory, and definitely no-fly zone is also dead idea. Dead idea, by the way. If they try, they will provoke a direct war with Russia. Open direct war, by the way. They already are engaged in this proxy war against Russia. But if they begin deploying troops and if they try to introduce no-fly zone, then, well, Russia will have no option but to just neutralize them all, right? And better someone actually briefed US leadership on risks. Because they might be that stupid, actually, to not understand how dangerous all this topic is, right? So let's see, by the way. At this point, it's still all the speculations, because I find it difficult to believe that Western so-called elites really don't understand that they are risking to provoke a direct conflict between Russia and NATO, which will rapidly transform into a full-scale nuclear exchange, and that's going to be the end of everything, right? I don't think all of them are that stupid not to understand the risks that they are playing with. So probably this is all speculation of some sort, but you never know. Maybe they are actually that stupid and going to send their troops and try to introduce some no-fly zone there. I mean, we're going to find out soon, isn't it? We're going to find out soon. Also, by the way, when it comes to Trump, he went to say that Zelensky is not exactly the innocent either when it comes to this crisis. I have short video, I believe, of this statement.
Because not everybody, Zelensky is not exactly innocent either, okay? It takes two people to tango, and I say it all the time. You got to get them together. I get along with Zelensky now, but we have a much different relationship because now we're not paying any money to Ukraine. Stop that.
So seems like he still has some issues with Zelensky, isn't it? Although I guess he's been briefed to say little or nothing much critical of Zelensky, but nevertheless, sometimes he does make some statements that will make nervous globalists and their puppet Zelensky. But at this point, I'm not sure the statements of Trump even mean anything, right? So that's what Trump says, and he's still pushing this idea of Trump Putin Zelensky meeting, which is not going to happen. By the way, it's not going to happen, right? Russian side was very clear that Moscow has no issue. Russian president himself said that he has no issue to meet with Zelensky if that's what is needed to reach a final resolution in regards to this conflict. He will meet with anybody, right? If that will help to reach the peace, a long-lasting peace. But first, by the way, the ground has to be prepared. Some agreement has to be prepared by expert groups from sides, right? Because presidents, when they meet each other, they have to finalize agreements. They are not negotiators, right? They are not experts. Their position is different, right? It's up to experts to reach agreements, work on some nuances, and prepare everything for leaders to come and finalize with their signing, right? So if there is agreements in the place, Putin will meet with Zelensky, but if there is no agreements, and it is clear there is none, right now. So why would Putin even consider? Why would Putin even consider to meet with Zelensky? It's nonsensical, right? And that's why I'm saying, by the way, more statements Trump makes, more ridiculous it sounds, right? Or he sounds. He is demanding for 2 weeks straight now, isn't it? That, well, Putin and Zelensky should meet. Why? Why? To discuss weather? Why should they meet? To say hello to each other? This is not the way presidents do business, for God's sake, man. At least Russian president is busy, right? He had to run this biggest country in this world, and I don't think he has time to waste an entire day, by the way, to meet with Zelensky and then discuss freaking weather patterns. It's nonsense, right? So Trump needs to be briefed, by the way, needs to be prepared better, because this is not good, man. This is not good what he's doing while making these nonsensical statements literally on daily basis, by the way. I mean, probably I will make separate blog in every live stream from now on Trump's statements, because he is, after all, U.S. president, and no matter how stupid his statement is or ridiculous, media and public worldwide, by the way, pay attention because yet again, he is a U.S. president, and U.S. is a still major economical and military superpower, right? Also, by the way, RIA Novosti is reporting that U.S. might impose sanctions on both Russia and Ukraine, according to Trump. So Donald Trump threatened to impose sanctions against both Russia and Ukraine if there is no progress in resolving the conflict at the meeting of the U.S. administration cabinet in the White House. And key points of his statements, by the way: only economic measures are considered. We do not want a third world war. The U.S. may impose sanctions, strong tariffs that will cost Russia and Ukraine dearly. I mean, are you serious? I mean, why Trump or anybody else from U.S. leadership is constantly talking about sanctions, by the way, or the tariffs in regards to Russia? It's already 30,000 plus sanctions. And I don't believe there is any more or less professional expert in economics that will say that, you know what, you add 2 more sanctions or 3 more sanctions, and well, that's going to be it. I mean, Russia's economy going to collapse immediately. No, it's not happening, by the way, right? And after all, even Western media, by the way, is reporting now, unhappily, but that there is not really much left to sanction for the West, and they are struggling already to come up with the new sanctions. For example, EU, by the way, is struggling with this 19th package of sanction now because they have no freaking idea what to sanction, right? They already become tremendously ridiculous, by the way, with their sanctions. Everybody's laughing at them, right? At Brussels bureaucrats. But yet again, Politico is even writing that now Western so-called elites are struggling with these sanctions because they have no freaking idea of what to sanction. What they're going to do? They're going to actually sanction oxygen generated by Russian forestry, or what they're going to do? So it is what it is. So why Trump is constantly saying that, well, we're going to impose sanctions on Russia and that's going to cost dearly, really? And what about tariffs, by the way? There is almost no trade between Russia and US. And what is still remains from a former economical partnership of US-Russia businesses, well, mainly it's US that buys stuff from Russia. It's no other way around, by the way. Mainly it's US buys stuff from Russia, and this stuff is, by the way, enriched uranium for US nuclear power plants, right? Also, it's titanium details, by the way, for US aerospace industry, right? You take any Boeing, by the way, you checked it, you're gonna find parts of the plane that was made in Russia. Titanium parts, right? One of the most stronger metals that there is, right? Best solution when it comes to weight strength ratio, titanium. And it's Russia and Canada, by the way, two countries that are leading this field, right? Titanium works. And there are other things, by the way. It's US that buys fertilizers from Russia. And when it comes to reverse, what Russia buys from US, by the way, I mean, almost nothing, right? US has nothing to offer, really. US just has nothing to, that they can offer exclusively to Russia, that there is no anywhere else. That's the reality, sir. When he talks about sanctions and tariffs on Russia, it just looks ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous because it is. What else do I have? So Trump also allowed for something serious, including an economic war with Moscow if he is not satisfied with the pace of settlement, but stressed that he would not want this. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what is wrong with this America First, formally at least America First force that should be in charge in the White House. Or maybe they are not. Maybe they are not. Who is running the show there? What economical war against Russia? You already are engaged in a proxy war against Russia and economical war against Russia, and for a very long time. So what Trump is talking about there? And also, by the way, it is quite disgusting, isn't it, when US politicians pretend to be mediators, sort of. And completely ignoring the fact that US is a leading force when it comes to enemy anti-Russian coalition and countries that are engaged in this proxy war against us. And they are still acting as if they are mediators. What the hell, man? Unbelievable. Also, what else he said? The president of US expects to resolve the Ukrainian conflict very quickly. Yeah. Send more weapons and more money, by the way. Sacrifice more residents on key controlled territory. And yeah, you will get there quickly, of course. Freaking idiots, man. The Russian leadership supports the idea of a settlement, but the simultaneous consent of both parties is needed. Okay, sometimes he might say something that makes sense. Well, Russian leadership was always very clear that Moscow is focused on a long-lasting peace and final resolution that will require root causes to be addressed of this crisis. Trump responded in a harsh tone on the words of Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov about legitimacy of Zelensky. I already shared that information. The head of Kyiv regime is responsible for the lack of progress towards their peaceful settlement. Okay, as I said, sometimes he might say something that makes sense. Trump, Ukraine, throughout they were going to win. Ukraine thought they were going to win. You are going to beat someone 15 times bigger than you. Biden should not have let that happen. Trump said. He loves to repeat this stuff, isn't it? That Ukraine never had a chance. It is true. Ukraine or collective West. Let's be real here. Collective West never had a chance to beat Russia, right? But globalists went to provoke this war anyways, right? Globalists, neocons, and so on, and They're going to find out now. They're going to find out. And so, yes, I don't think there is any point to continue with this report. Also, Trump, as you know, loves to say lately, especially, that the U.S. is no longer funding the war in Ukraine, although he's always saying that, well, U.S. now sells weapons, right? On one side, in the very same day, by the way, in a 1 hour interval or even 10-minute interval, by the way, Trump might say that, well, he wants peace to be achieved rapidly, right? And on the other hand, like next sentence will be, well, we send more weapons, right? And best weapons in the world and that kind of shit. And one would ask, I mean, are you normal? Are you okay? If you want peace, why you are sending weapons then? But this is, I guess, too complex issue for the brains of people like Trump, man. It's freaking morons, man. Right? I believe I have a short video on that too. Where is it? That's it, I guess.
Didn't pay the 2 and they paid the 5. So, and as you know, we are selling a tremendous amount of equipment to NATO. We're not spending any money, we're making money, but I don't want to talk about making. I want to talk about we're no longer involved with funding Ukraine, but we are involved with trying to stop the war and the killing in Ukraine. So we're selling missiles and military equipment, millions and millions, and ultimately billions of dollars to the NATO people, where I'm very we have a great relationship, but that was an amazing trip. So they're funding the entire war. We're not funding anything. I think it's an important point to make because a lot of people don't understand that.
I mean, I guess he does not understand that he is not bringing peace any closer while selling weapons, while transferring weapons to Kyiv regime directly or indirectly. And yet again, by the way, I guess Stanislav Krapivnik, by the way, was absolutely correct. Well, when he said in recent interview that I have with him that U.S. will be, happy to see prolongation of this war as long as possible. They will just sell the weapons. That's what they do, by the way. They will just sell weapons and focus on some other areas, and they will let Europeans pay for it, right? That's what U.S. does. One should keep in mind that after the Second World War, U.S. emerged as a basically superpower and the empire, right? This transformation of republic into empire basically was finalized after Second World War. Is it true, isn't it? They will happily sell weapons, by the way. All these talks that they want peace and the escalation is just BS. 100%. Otherwise, if they really wanted to reach peace, they will just stop transferring weapons directly or indirectly, and they will stop sharing intelligence. That's it, man. And these globalist controlled European regimes, by the way, alone would not be able to prolong this war more than, I guess, like 3-5 months max, right? And they will be forced to submission by Moscow in a relatively short time. And of course, their proxy regime in Kyiv. All it takes for the US, which is a main enforcer still in the hands of Western ruling class, to stop transferring weapons and sharing intelligence. That's it. And then leave it for 3-5 months, and Moscow will force not just Kyiv regime, by the way, but globalist controlled regimes in Europe to surrender. Because they're going to surrender, by the way, right? Whenever agreement will be reached, and it will be reached at some point, right? On matter of de-escalation, that agreement is going to be capitulation of the globalist controlled regimes in Europe. Capitulation. Nothing less than that will be acceptable for Moscow. Because Russia is winning and collective West is losing, and losing big time, right? That's it. We are now discussing terms of capitulation of terms of capitulation of West. That's what is main topic of discussion, I think. And Trump and all the others, by the way, cannot talk for all day long, all they want, right? But reality would not change by this. At one point, they will all have to come to their senses and acknowledge that they lost, and they will sign up for capitulation, and their proxies also, right? That's how it is, by the way. And what else do I have here? Let me give you, for example, you know what? I have a few more statements about Trump, by the way. For example, he said that Americans love to see dictator, by the way, if crime is beaten in a country. And this is at least second time in a row, by the way, that Trump is kind of hinting on something here. I mean, let's listen what he has to say on the matter.
Chicago's a killing field right now, and they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom. He's a dictator, he's a dictator. A lot of people are saying, maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense, and I'm a smart person.
I mean, this is also quite a stuff, isn't it? When he compliments himself constantly. I mean, what the hell, man? I have never seen any leader in world behave this way. I mean, to compliment himself constantly. I mean, this is clearly not normal stuff, by the way. You don't say, I am a genius, I am a great this and great that. Other people do, right? If you actually are. But I don't know. Trump is something extraordinary, isn't it? So yes, sir, this is a statement of his from day before yesterday, and I believe yesterday he once again in the White House hinted on dictatorship, right? That people would love to, you know, see dictator if crime is beaten, right? If crime is stopped. And I don't know, by the way. Recently I noticed that in the Western so-called media, and also even in alternative media, by the way, statements and comments being made that next phase of evolutionary development, let's say this way, of US is actually dictatorship, because this is only way, and justification for this idea is that this is only way this corrupt system can be dealt with. You know, that's the idea that is beginning to be circulated in the US. I spotted on one of the big channels on alternative media, even, by the way, right? So this could not be, or this cannot be just a random stuff, by the way, right? Trump is hinting on dictatorship, ideas of stronger leadership to deal with the corrupt system is also beginning to circulate. And so I guess something is happening, by the way, behind the scenes. And you never know if Trump is healthy enough after his term will end. After this second term will end, maybe he will actually go ahead with a third run or third term. Who knows? Because anything is possible, man. Anything is possible. And I don't think this topic of dictatorship or strong leadership and how more effective running the country will be if there is a strong leadership, and how easier it will be to deal with their deep state and their corrupt system if there is a strong leadership. These ideas are being circulated for a reason, I think. It's not random stuff, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but if Trump will survive his second term politically, if he is not going to be removed from office, as he should, by the way, for a number of reasons, for attacking Iran, or for covering up Epstein files, and all that story, and for a number of other reasons. But if he survives politically, then he might actually go ahead with a third term. Who knows, man? Anyways, dear friends, let me continue with some more news that Russian media pays attention to. And when it comes to weapon supplies to Kiev regime, by the way, it's not just the US, of course. All the other, or most of their other Western countries or countries from the collective West are engaged in that. And we have some stats about Belgium's involvement. So Belgium is transferring 1 billion euros per year till 2029. That's an obligation that Belgium took on itself. Also, 20 million to Food from Ukraine initiative, 150 million to schools, hospitals, and energy systems, and their F-16 fighters. Also, gonna be, as a Belgium's involvement in this proxy war, F-16 fighters also going to be sent next month. So number of them, and I remind you, dear friends, that Belgium already transferred the F-16s, right, to Kiev regime. That's the Belgium. Yesterday I shared stats about Germany's involvement, isn't it? Germany on its own already spent 50 billion plus euros on prolongation of this proxy war against Russia. Well, RT is also reporting, dear friends, that Trump's envoy sets a new time frame for ending Ukraine conflict. I don't think it is serious to put this extremely complex matter into some time frames. It would not work that way. But nevertheless, U.S. Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff has said that Washington hopes to see Ukraine's conflict resolved by the end of 2025, citing Moscow's peace proposal on the table and ongoing meetings with the Russian and Ukrainian representatives. I believe I have a short clip of the statement of Witkoff too. Let's listen to what he has to say there. So where is the Witkoff? That's it.
Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, Hamas. We're having meetings all this week on all three of those conflicts, and we hope to settle them before the end of this year. Your team is nothing short of incredible, and there's only one thing I wish for.
I mean, and they're constantly praising Trump, by the way. He's like a monarch, by the way, isn't it? I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people, man? Do you see ever Russian president, and Westerners love to call him a dictator, right? Do you see ever Russian president is having a meeting with some officials, and these officials are beginning, I mean, you are so great, and you are so powerful, and you are so decent, so that... Do you ever see anything like that from Moscow, by the way? No. When Russian president meets with their officials, they talk business, right? They greet each other, hello, hello, and that's it. They began talk business. So what's going on in the US, by the way? This is clearly not... Maybe I'm mistaken or something, but I think this is not normal when they are constantly praising themselves and each other and Donald Trump. What the hell, man? Do they have any self-respect, these people? Imbeciles, man, I'm telling you. These are freaking imbeciles, man. Let's see what this Witkoff has to say.
That noble committee finally gets its act together and realizes that you are the single finest candidate.
This is insane, man. This is insane. Why am I not equipped with the skills of comedian, by the way? I mean, you might do such a great comedic show on statements of these people, man. I mean, this is something extraordinary. You are funniest and this and that. What the heck, man? And they are dreaming about, they are fixated, isn't it, on that Nobel Peace Prize, man. What the hell? After that prize was given to Obama for no reason at all, for nothing, literally, right? After that, who would ever want to be part of that shameful stuff, man? Why would any decent human being would want to ever be associated with that shameful organization that Nobel Committee is? You know? I don't know, man. Oh, a Nobel Peace Prize is a joke, man, but they love to have it, man, for a Trump.
Since the this Nobel Award was ever talked about, to receive that reward. Beyond your success is game-changing out in the world today. And I hope everybody one day wakes up and realizes that.
This is crazy, man, isn't it? This is insane. But yes, in the beginning of this video, he said that, well, hopefully all this conflict will end before end of 2025. Unfortunately, there is a very little chance on that. I'm afraid we're not going to see the escalation in a Middle East. Israel not going to stop committing crimes against humanity until Israel is forced to stop and undergo demilitarization and denazification. And Ukrainian crisis, or this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, will, I'm afraid, also continue in 2026 or maybe even 2027, if US will continue to be destructively engaged in this proxy war against Russia. If US will pull out, then in that case, Russia might actually force globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe to submission and to capitulation by mid-2026, maybe, possibly, earlier. But with US involvement, of course, process gonna take longer. But eventually they will capitulate, by the way, no doubts about that. Eventually, globalists, neocons, and all of them, and they will capitulate because we'll have no other way. But longer this conflict continues, more people dying, there is more destruction. And it's a tragedy, by the way. It's a tragedy, first of all, for Russian world, because it's Russian people mainly are fighting Russian people. Even if residents of Kiev-controlled territory being brainwashed, and even if they believe that they are descendants of, I don't know, Egyptian pharaohs or Scytho-Sarmatians or Vikings and they do believe, by the way, you're going to find people there that are believing in such a crap that you're going to get shocked, by the way, right? And they are writing books about it, and they are making documentaries about it, so-called documentaries about this freaking nonsense, right? But in reality, they are Russians, majority of them, right? There are no ethnic Ukrainians, by the way. They never existed and will never exist, right? It's a political Ukrainianism idea which was generated first by British aristocracy, British royalty, and then was significantly developed and promoted by German aristocracy and leadership. And Bismarck was talking about it openly, isn't it? That if you want to weaken Russia, then put the seeds of Ukrainianism into people that are living on that certain territory that called Ukraine, which is initially Poles called that territory, certain parts, not all of it, by the way, that was in Soviet Union Ukraine. No, just part. It was Poles that called the territory Ukraine, which is outskirt, by the way. That's what that word means, Ukraine. In Polish and in Russian, it's a Slavic language, isn't it? It means Ukraine, outskirt, right? And London, and then first royal British royals, aristocracies, then Germans did whatever they could to put the seeds of this insanity in the people on that Ukraine, to start believing in this political Ukrainianism, that they are Ukrainians, different ethnic group, different than Russians, different than Poles, different than everyone else. And unfortunately, they did succeed, right? And they did brainwash so many people that now you're going to find Ivan Ivanov, by the way, somewhere in a freaking Lvov, who will say that he's Ukrainian. I mean, most Russian name and surname you can have, by the way, Ivan Ivanov. And that person could be brainwashed on such a scale, by the way, that he will say he's Ukrainian. And I remind you, dear friends, that one of the Nazi formations, right sector, that was actively used by CIA during the 2014 coup d'etat in Kiev, bloody coup d'etat, this right sector, Ukrainian neo-Nazi formation, was created by whom? By ethnic Hungarian, by the way. Ethnic Hungarian. right? That was also brainwashed in such a scale that that person forgot about his actual ethnic, historical, cultural roots and completely believed in this nonsense that he is Ukrainian now somehow. I mean, it's a tragedy, by the way. This is a tragedy that is happening. First of all, yet again, for the Russian world, because it's the Russian people mainly, by the way, that are killing each other. And it has to stop, by the way. And those people that have been brainwashed will undergo denazification programs and then hopefully will be saved. Hopefully will be saved once this conflict will end. And the same has to be done with ethnic Hungarians and ethnic Poles, by the way, that are also being indoctrinated in these sickening, nonsensical, crazy ideas that they have, by the way, in these Ukrainian, so-called Ukrainian Nazis, man. Crazy. So where I was, dear friends, that's Witkov. I did share statements of Witkov, isn't it? Let's continue with some more news, and I still have some news, dear friends, to share left for a news segment. Dmitriev, a special envoy of the Russian president, continues to, and he is a very clever guy, by the way. I mean, he's a very capable person, was chosen for a reason to be economical representative or representative of the Russian president in economical terms, but he is also engaged in some diplomatic moves nowadays, right? And for quite a while already. And he says that dialogue between Putin and Trump will change the world. I mean, very strong statement and a very optimistic one. Hopefully he means in a positive way, change the world. I'm not as positive on that, not as optimistic, unfortunately, but let me give you some details of his statement. So, and keep in mind, this is a real intellectual, by the way, and a well-versed person in economics and in many other stuff, right? He's been chosen to be a representative for president for a reason, right? And but yet again, he is engaged in this diplomacy, and I guess it does influence his statements. So dialogue between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US leader Donald Trump can change the global situation and strengthen global security. This opinion was expressed in the 10th meeting by Kirill Dmitriev, special representative of the President of the Russian Federation for International Economic Cooperation and the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. According to him, communication between the two leaders has their potential to ensure not only security but also prosperity at the global level. And you know what? Even though I'm skeptic, unfortunately, because I don't really see that many indicators to be optimistic on topic of Russia-US relationships. But I said in previous updates also, by the way, that there is a great potential for cooperation between Russia and US that will benefit both countries and that will benefit whole world. Although this to happen, this to become reality, US has to get out of this conflict, of course, and then has to agree on the concessions before Russia for all the crimes that was committed by US in recent years against Russia, for all the harm that was done to Russian people, Russian society, Russian Federation by US's engagement in this proxy war. If US will get out of this conflict, then agrees on the concessions, serious concessions before Moscow, to make sure that at least on the state level, Russia will seek no revenge against US, then sides might actually find the ground for, on initial stages, for improvements to be reached in a relationship, step by step. And then after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, potentially relationships might actually reach maybe even a friendly or strategical level. It's a possibility. So if Dmitriev is talking about that potential, yes, it is there, right? There is a great potential, but will Washington do whatever is needed to reach that place? I don't think so. I don't know. I just don't know. So therefore, unfortunately, I have to say that, well, I'm not as optimistic as Dmitriev is. But, he knows more than I do, of course, right? He is, it again, for a reason, president's envoy. And maybe his optimism based on that additional information that, very few people know in this world, right? And are not widely available for rest of the public. And maybe if his optimism is based on that information, then okay, I'll be happy about it, right? Because I do want to see Russia and US being strategical partners, by the way. I want to see triangle, Russia, India, US, to be strategical partners, by the way. That will definitely increase security for whole world if we will manage to have this triangle. But Washington currently is in conflict with India and is in conflict with Russia. So I don't know how this might become a thing, this triangle, strategical triangle for peace, man, and prosperity. Russia, India, US. We can do some great things together, but it's a long way to go to reach that point, if it's even possible. So yes, I already shared information, by the way, that Trump says Americans like dictators that stop crime. And yeah, they're hinting on something. They're hinting on something, by the way, there. Also, dear friends, probably also you have already noticed that head of fascist Israel, Netanyahu, is on a media tour, kind of. He is appearing on all pro-Israeli channels in alternative media. I would not call them a part of alternative media, really, because they are propagandists, right, basically. Including PBD, by the way. I do watch some clips from PBD podcaster. David, or it's David, isn't it? That guy, former military. Not just the main host, but the other one. He does makes great points time to time. Tom also is more or less okay. PBD himself sometimes makes good points, but I mean, Bias is tremendous on this show towards objective informations. By the way, they are very pro-Israeli, right? They have Adam, isn't it? What is the name of that guy? That always defends Israel, no matter what they do. It's insane, right? But nevertheless, Netanyahu recently appeared on a podcast of this guy, Kisin or something, Konstantin Kisin. He has some podcast with another guy in the Western, Trigonometria or something. And they are also very pro-Israeli, by the way. And Netanyahu went there, and he had their freedom to spread all the nonsense that he wants. He also went on PBD podcast and did the same, right? It's a shame, by the way, why they are giving the platform to this mass murderer and the Nazi. I don't know if they are not pressing him, right? And they are not, by the way. Unfortunately, they are not. They are giving him a free pass, which is a shame, of course. That's why I don't consider them to be a part of alternative media. And well, let me give you some short clip of statements of Netanyahu on that podcast, by the way. And look how he talks about Western countries. Who is in charge there, really? I mean, he's talking about intelligence communities there, but Tom, by the way, I mean, is telling. Just listen to it.
Intel that is invaluable for the United States. You're familiar with the Five Eyes, Patrick? You know what that is? You know all these countries that are part of the American intelligence system? Well, there's a sixth eye, Israel. It's a very powerful eye, and we share our intel with the American intelligence services. And that's why the bond is so strong. It's not only a bond of values of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. and it is really a war of civilization against the barbarians that we're fighting. But it's also
this sickening individual calls barbarians people that Israelis are massacring, by the way, in unimaginable scale. Hundreds of thousands being killed. Innocent children, women, elderly. And this sickening element is called Palestinian people barbarians. They went in, these European settlers basically, went in, took their land, right? Created their state on the land of others. And since then are killing them non-stop, by the way, and still dare to call them a barbarians, by the way. I mean, this is sickening. This is sickening, you know. And shame on PBD, by the way, that he did not stop him right there and did not take him out of the air. How you can call barbarians to a whole group of people when you are committing some atrocities, unimaginable atrocities?
It's also a bond of utility, of great success. That partnership is very, very strong. I know it's challenged all the time, but it's very, very strong. And you should talk to some of the people in the higher places in the Pentagon. I wish you could talk to the people who share our intelligence or the weapon systems that we share. I think that you'll discover that they appreciate, as we appreciate enormously what America gives to us, and they appreciate what Israel gives to America.
Well, basically, I read his statements as, just ask them, man, how important and influential we are. Ask them, and they're going to tell you. That's what they say, but they are in charge. These psychopaths, these genocidal maniacs, by the way, are in charge, actually, of US and majority countries in the collective West. Not just there, by the way, but their focus is collective West because they use and abuse collective West countries for decades and decades now, right? And unfortunately, due to support that they have, guaranteed support that they have from their controlled regimes in West, they are committing crimes against humanity with impunity, with total impunity, until now. It's a shame on humanity, by the way, what's happening, but and shame on PBD for giving this genocidal maniac a platform and did not pressing him on the crimes of fascist Israelis. Let's continue with some more news, dear friends. And we have this report that our team shared. Iran ready for indirect negotiations with US, according to Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. If US guarantees not to launch a military strike in the middle of negotiations, as it did in the past, he said stresses that decision not to negotiate directly has not changed. So Iran is ready to have indirect talks with mediation of others. But yet again, he's a diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, and he cannot shut the door to their diplomacy, right? He just cannot do it. This is not the way diplomats operate. But nevertheless, I guess he knows, we know, everyone knows that U.S. leadership cannot be trusted on anything, right? We all know that they will use diplomacy and negotiations as a weapon to basically misinform you, disinform you, right? And to cut you off guard. They did it on numerous occasions, including against Iran. So therefore, this is just a diplomatic gesture, I guess. No one should expect real negotiations to happen between US and Iran anytime soon, if ever, until US will actually change, if it's even possible. Also, we have this report that Iran has declared its readiness for a repeat of their military conflict with Israel. So Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi did not rule out the possibility of a new confrontation with Israel, noting that the countries are at complete readiness for any scenario. And unfortunately, there are reports, isn't it? There are reports that Iran is, Israel, by the way, is getting ready, prepared, with the assistance of US to launch another attacks on Iran. Some Western media outlets even suggested that this attack could take place before end of August, this month. And if we keep in mind the certain reports, for example, report that Russia, allegedly, based on Israeli media information, Russia is evacuating its diplomatic staff from Israel, which may not be true, by the way, but that's what Israeli channel 12 or 13 reported, right? Then who knows? Maybe there is some preparations in place in Israel and US to reignite conflict, to attack Iran again. And I remind you, dear friends, that I'm 100% convinced, and I spoke about it many times, that globalists want a regional war, long regional war in the Middle East, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and to cut off China from Middle Eastern energy sources. Globalists and neocons are on the same page there, right? And they failed to reach this goal during recent attack on Iran, and they may try again, and they will try again for sure. It's only a matter of time. It's not a question or if. It's a question of when they will do it. So Iran better prepared for war for sure. Also, dear friends, we have a report that U.S. further escalates Caribbean military build-up. According to Reuters, U.S. has ordered the deployment of USS Lake Earl guided missile cruiser and USS Newport nuclear attack submarine to the Southern Caribbean as early as next week. The move follows the last week's deployment of an amphibious assault group, including USS San Antonio, USS Iwo Jima, and USS Fort Lauderdale, carrying 4,500 troops, including 2,000 and 2,000 Marines off the Venezuela coast. The official pretext is combating narco-terrorist organizations. Yes, you are combating narco-terrorist organizations while deploying nuclear subs and hunter killers, by the way, right? Hunter submarines, cruise guided missile cruisers, and amphibious warships, right? And you are combating narco cartels by doing so. I mean, it's insane, right? But yeah, so official pretext is combating narco terrorist organizations, narco cartels, while in reality, of course, we all understand that U.S. is full on in full on preparations to attack Venezuela and to conduct a regime change there and to recolonize basically this country that has most oil reserves in this world, most oil reserves in this world, right? So I guess it's only a matter of time, but one way or another, but U.S. will actually begun escalating directly with the military force, and U.S. military should get ready, by the way, to fight in jungles if they have experience for that, because it's not gonna be easy work. I'm telling you, it's not gonna be easy work, especially if U.S. will not agree with Russia on concessions to guarantee that Russia will not seek revenge on U.S. For involvement in this proxy war against Russia. I mean, if U.S. wants to have any guarantees that at least on the state level Russia will seek no revenge, they should agree on concessions and now before they will enter Venezuela. Otherwise, I'm quite sure there will be many Russians, by the way, that will happily kill U.S. militaries. Happily, by the way, kill U.S. militaries, as many as possible, right, on behalf of Venezuelan forces. That's it, man. Nothing personal, right? or it is personal, actually. It is personal. For many Russians, it is going to be personal. And they will use any opportunity to kill as many US military as possible, anywhere in this world. Just, all they want is a chance. That's it, man. And the only way US might have guarantees that Russia, at least on the state level, will seek no revenge on US is to agree on the concessions to Russia. And these concessions are going to be tremendous concessions, by the way. And even then, if Russia on state level will seek no revenge, well, independent groups will continue to seek revenge, and this is going to be forever. Because due to U.S. involvement in this proxy war, tens of thousands of Russian people died. And they have to be revenged, by the way. Their blood have to be revenged, 100%, by the way. Blood for blood. That's it. That's my philosophy there. Right? So I'm all in support of everybody who takes actions to revenge Russian citizens. Against U.S., against any country that was and still is engaged in this proxy war against Russia. We have to revenge our soldiers, our civilians. For them, we have to do whatever is needed to be done. And if I had resources, by the way, I'll definitely invest it. And I will already send special forces, private military companies to Venezuela to make sure that U.S. military is not going to have an easy walk there. That's it. And I will, because U.S. didn't agree on the concessions to Russia already, then, I hope Russia will transfer to Venezuela long-range anti-ship missiles. Maybe it's already been done. Some other weapon systems, of course, satellite intelligence have to be given to Venezuelan forces, special forces, intelligence. We have to do anything and everything to revenge blood of our people. That's it, man. Meanwhile, U.S. is attacking not just Venezuela, but also Brazil. We all know that. And Trump several times spoke about former president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, in high terms, right? He likes that guy. He sees him as an ally. And that criminal, Bolsonaro, was basically ordered to be under round-the-clock surveillance. This order was given by Brazilian judge Alexander de Morales, who branded the Bolsonaro flight risk. And by the way, why they are messing around the topic, why they don't put in jail this criminal and then, then let some criminals that are in jail, to have a training session on this animal. I don't get it, man. There is so many ways to exterminate these criminals, right? Assets of their Western secret services. Why Brazilian leadership is messing around, man, or special forces or secret services, by the way. They do some stuff, right? So what the hell, man? What the hell? This is just too much, really. And same can be said about Georgian leadership, by the way. Georgian leadership is also tries to win in a game of Western secret services with the rules of the Western secret services and Western elites. And Georgian leadership also, as it is the case in Brazil, in Serbia, in every other country, they're not going to succeed. They're not going to succeed if they try to beat Western secret services, Western so-called elites, by the way, in their game with their rules. It's just theoretically even not possible to beat them, right? So you have to change the rules. You have to do whatever is necessary, right? To protect the people and protect the country. And sometimes you have to make choices, difficult choices. Sometimes you have to do some nasty stuff to protect your people. That's how it is, man. And if you are not ready for that, then you should not be in a position of power. Because position of power is not for weak people, right? Weak people will get corrupt very fast. Strong people, they don't give a damn about power. They want to serve the people, right? And then, therefore, they will be in a position ready psychologically, by the way, to take strong decisions, unpleasant decisions that are necessary sometimes, right? And Georgian leadership has every reason, by the way, to, for example, take some actions, even if they don't like the idea of it, because, well, time after time, leadership of Georgian Dream Party, that is a ruling party in Georgia, is saying that, well, Western ruling class still to nowadays, by the way, demands from them to open a second front against Russia and to basically sacrifice Georgian people or people of Georgia and Georgia itself for geopolitical agenda of the West. And because they are not agreeing on that, well, collective West tries hard, by the way, to orchestrate regime change there in Georgia. And there is constant protests of these Western assets, by the way. I reported yesterday or day before that this Western-controlled mob almost killed a U.S. citizen, by the way. They mistook him for Russian citizen, and these animals jumped on that U.S. tourist, and almost killed him. If police was not quick enough to get engaged, then probably they would kill that U.S. tourist. And if that person was a Russian, I mean, I'm not sure police would be that quick. I hope police would get engaged anyways, but you know, propaganda, by the way, anti-Russian propaganda, especially during the Shevardnadze and Saakashvili's presidency, did brainwash quite a lot of people, by the way. And these Western assets, unfortunately, still have a propaganda means, so-called media, by the way, TV stations and their newspapers and stuff. So they are still brainwashing people, right? And indoctrinating in Russia hate and hate of Georgia itself and everything Georgian, right? They've been brainwashed to become complete westernized freaking animals, right? And these attempts continue constantly, by the way, to destabilize a country by Western secret services or Western assets there. And we have this information now that Georgia accuses West of pressuring Tbilisi to open a second front against Russia. I mean, how many times they're going to make such statements? But, you know, Tbilisi Mayor Kaladze, who is also leader of the Georgian Dream Party, by the way, ruling party, says that Western officials made direct threats and blackmail in Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze's office, demanding Georgia to launch a second front in their war with Russia. We have quote here, in Irakli Kobakhidze's office, there were direct threats, blackmail, and insults demanding that the second front be opened in the country. They promised assistance, equipment, and so on. And they're refusing. And I also saw reports, by the way, that, you know what argument of the Westerners are that are demanding from Georgian government to open second front? Well, you have millions of people. So Russia's not going to kill everybody, right? So therefore, don't worry that, you know, you're going to get sacrificed. Don't worry about it. Just open the second front. Can you imagine, by the way, level of degeneration of these Western so-called elites that they are actually talking in private directly about massacre of the people? And it's going to be a massacre, by the way, if Georgia enters war with Russia. Georgia not going to survive that, right? Georgian armed force is going to get massacred, by the way, by Russian troops, as it is the case in creation of the Bolsheviks that Ukraine is, right? Unbelievable, man. And while this is happening, Georgian government is still playing these freaking games of so-called democracy, and they are not shutting down so-called media outlets that are run by the Western assets. They are not shutting down their propaganda means. They are not shutting down so-called NGOs, by the way, that are financed and run from West and by Western secret services. They are doing nothing, literally, to protect the country and their society from these traitors that are paid by the West and brainwashed by the West. The so-called opposition or whatever they call themselves. What the hell, man? This is wrong on so many levels, but yet again, somehow Georgian Dream Party leadership thinks that they can beat Western Secret Services in a game that West invented, by the way, and with the rules that also invented by the West. Come on, man. Just if you cannot make strong decisions, then you should not be in a position of power. Go find some other job to do, other work to do. But if you are in a government, your obligation is to protect your people, and then do it, right? Bring special forces in that Rustaveli Avenue, by the way, and just eliminate all those fucking animals. That's it, man. It's a 1 hour job and issue is finished, right? Yeah, you're going to be called all sorts of names by the Western so-called elites. Who gives a damn and what they will call you? You will do favor for your people. That's it, period, man. If you don't want to go that far, okay, there is other ways. Arrest all of them, literally all of them, man, and let the judges decide what their fate gonna be. I think if they will be, if you want to go on a liberal way of punishment, then let them fucking become cleaners for next 5 years and let them clean streets of Tbilisi, Kutaisi, Batumi, Rustari, and other Hashuri, by the way, Tchetr, other cities. Let them clean the streets. Maybe they will learn something, maybe their brains will start working again properly. But longer you continue to ignore these risks, then more chances are that eventually collective West will beat you in their game. That happened always, everywhere, right? Where governments were playing these games with the West, and Georgia not going to be exception. Brazil not going to be exception. Serbia not going to be exception, by the way. There are no exceptions there. Either you are doing whatever is necessary, or then just go away. Let the other people run their country, right? That can make decisions that are necessary. Am I correct, dear friends? I mean, why these people are messing around and pretending, right? What the hell, man? Let's get real and do whatever is necessary to do, man. We all understand Western elites are evil force. I mean, it's an evil force. So why you care what this evil force will say about you? Ever. You should fight against this evil force, by the way, not listen to it. Interesting news from China, dear friends. Chinese third aircraft carrier, Fujian, to join their PLA Navy in September. So Fujian, China's most advanced aircraft carrier, and you can see on your screen, by the way, this massive warship, is expected to be officially commissioned next month, possibly during the September 3rd military parade in Beijing. Launched in 2022, their ship has been proven in over 9 sea trails. The timing lies with the China's World War II victory commemoration and sends a clear message to regional rivals. And yes, by the way, China definitely is building Navy big time, by the way. A big time third aircraft carrier, and this one is a US type aircraft carrier. I would not say this is like maybe it can be classified as a super carrier, by the way. Maybe it can be classified super carrier. It's definitely more capable than our previous ones that had a trampoline, right? Soviet type aircraft carriers that have trampoline, or British style. This one is clearly US type of aircraft carrier when not trampoline is not used, but this steam powered mechanism is used to launch the planes, right? This allows planes to take off with a much more heavy payload than trampoline allows. I mean, you have to have beast planes, by the way, to take off with full payload, even with the help of trampoline, right? But this aircraft carrier is definitely significantly more capable, it seems to me. And this is a message, of course, for regional rivals. Japan, first of all, this could be considered a message to India also. Although, by the way, China and India should not consider each other enemies, as leaders of two countries said just recently, and I report about that. These countries, even though they have some issues, and they do, are very important for this world and should be on good terms, at least. Maybe not strategical partners, although that would be preferable, of course, but at least they should have a good working relationships and don't consider each other to be enemies. But Japan is a different story. Japan is, of course, enemy of China and enemy of everybody, by the way. Japanese being hated all over the region, right? And for a reason. People in Korea, both Koreas, by the way, they still remember what Japanese murderers and fascists did to people there during the occupation. And Chinese remember that also very well. And all the other peoples, by the way, that experienced Japanese occupation during the World War II. Japanese, by the way, were committing crimes that would shock even SS formations of Third Reich. And that is quite telling, right? I remind you that SS formations were most brutal, by the way, formations of Nazi Germany. And even they would be shocked, I guess, by atrocities that Japanese were committing during the Second World War. And that's why they've been hated to nowadays, by the way. No one likes Japanese, man, in a region. And so many years passed since the Second World War, but memory is still fresh in people, by the way, because Japanese were committing some unbelievable atrocities, man. They were not just genociding people, but they were murdering people with their, they were torturing people, and they were enjoying that stuff, right? They were quite innovative in methods of torture that they were deploying. They were using biological weapons and horrendous crimes were committed by Japanese. So yes, this is a message clearly for Japan, for the US, obviously, because we are talking about China, by the way. I mean, they are well capable of launching this type of aircraft carriers every few years, right? And even though I think aircraft carriers are obsolete, especially in war between nuclear powers or near-peer rivals, but nevertheless, it's a show of force, right? That's what aircraft carriers can give you in the peace times. You are just showing force when in whichever area you move your carriers, right? So yeah, Japanese can actually catch up with US with number of aircraft carriers in next 10 to 15 years, for sure. And US, of course, has most aircraft carriers. I believe that they have 11, at least formally, 11 or 12, but only 3 or 4 are actually operational at any given point, if even that. US Navy is in decline, by the way, serious decline. And US shipyards are nowhere close to the capabilities of Chinese shipyards. This is also true. And even US military is acknowledging that, right? Also, dear friends, are interesting developments are happening in US. Opponents of the Trump are beginning to call him a communist because seems like state is getting engaged in the businesses. They want some share. They want to become shareholders, and I don't think this is a bad idea necessarily, right? I don't think multinational corporations should exist at all, right? I don't think any business should exist without state control. Once they will no longer can be considered a medium size company. That's my personal view how economy should be run. Small and medium business should be free of from state involvement. Of course, there have to be some control measures, right, to make sure that quality is there and everything. They should pay taxes, but rest, let the business do their what it does the best, run itself, right, and do the business. But once business is becoming, companies are becoming bigger than medium class, well, they at that point they are gaining so much influence, or they are in a position to gain so much influence, including on the politics, that a state should get engaged and have a representative on the board of that company to make sure that company operates in the best interests of the public and the country, right? So therefore, I don't see no issues with these recent moves that US is doing to get engaged in these businesses, massive businesses. And we have this report now that U.S. Secretary of the Commerce Howard Lutnick stated that Lockheed Martin, for example, that is a giant, by the way. It's not just simply a big company. It's a giant company that makes 97% of revenue from the U.S. government, and they are basically arm of the U.S. government. So therefore, government might seek a share in this business. Let me give you a short video, by the way. Let's listen what Lutnick has said here. I believe I have a short video of that. So, by the way, I'm never shying away to criticize Trump, you know it, right? But if he does something that is understandable, then why would I criticize him, right? For that. And I think if U.S. government will have a say in the management of these giant companies, that will be a good thing. That will be a good thing, and I will consider this move to be yet another attack on military-industrial complex's influence and deep state's influence on politics. First steps, by the way. Recently, John Bolton was in a spotlight, not for good reasons, right? And I consider that to be also attack on deep state and military-industrial complex. And now this report that U.S. government might get engaged in this giant of U.S. military-industrial complex.
Companies, though, for America. Secretary, why shouldn't the U.S. government say, you know what, we use Palantir services, we would like a piece of Palantir. We use Boeing services, we would like a piece of Boeing. There are a lot of businesses that do business with the U.S. government that benefit by doing business with the U.S. government. I guess the question is, where's the line?
Oh, there's a monstrous discussion about defense. I mean, Lockheed Martin makes 97% of their revenue from the U.S. government. They are basically an arm of the U.S. government. They make exquisite munitions. I mean, amazing things that can knock a missile out of the air when it's coming towards you. But what's the economics of that? I'm going to leave that to my Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. These guys are on it and they're thinking about it. But I tell you what, there's a lot of talking that needs to be had about how do we finance our munitions acquisitions. I think a lot of that is talking. And now you have the right people in the jobs and Donald Trump at the head thinking about what is the right way to do it. I tell you, the way it has been done has been a giveaway.
So you see, maybe, by the way, U.S. will go in a direction that Russia is operating, right? In Russia, all these giant corporations, by the way, I believe majority of them, and they're 100% in military-industrial complex, is run by state. State has, in many cases, 50% plus one share, and that gives a state a major say in the company's work, right? And when it comes to military-industrial complex, many companies are actually state-owned, and I think this is the way to go. You all have here the Gazprom, for example, right? It's a private state company. State, of course, has shares of Gazprom and have a board member. It's actually, I believe, it's a Russian state that appoints CEO in a Gazprom, right? It's a Miller right now, and I believe he was recommended by the state, right? Not appointed, but recommended by the state. And I think this is the way things to be run, by the way. I mean, because otherwise these giant companies will mess with your political system big time, as it is the case in US, right? In US, these giant companies are buying tons of these so-called politicians on all levels, by the way, all levels, right? And they are they are running the show then. They are implementing whatever laws they want. They are free to do whatever they want, man. These companies, right? Pharmaceutical companies, military industrial complex, banking sector, they are all in business buying US politicians, right? And this is not good. We all seeing what it will do to country if you allow that to happen. And US is a prime example of that, man. It might still be most powerful military force in this world, and either number one or second biggest economy in this world, depends how you counter, right? US and China already are competing with each other, but nevertheless, by the way, US is in big trouble, isn't it? And first of all, because of the corrupt system. So therefore, maybe Trump will be criticized by left. This is also fun, isn't it? Lefts are criticizing Trump for doing some lefty stuff, man. And this is quite a lefty move to state to get engaged with the business, right? Big business. I support that. I'm left liberal, by the way, by Russian standards. Although in US, I probably will be called ultra-right radical or something. But here in Russia, I consider myself to be left liberal, and I have no issue with this type of moves. State should control, should be engaged with big businesses. Otherwise, those businesses will be engaged in a state business. So either you do right thing, or they will and mess around. But interesting changes are happening in US. That's for sure, right? I'm quite surprised to see this kind of developments. And also a few more news differences that I want to share. Best Center stated that US Treasury Secretary, by the way, Scott Bessent, stated that US import tariffs revenue could reach $1 trillion by year end, and he's lying. This guy is lying, by the way. This guy is just simply lying to your face. They're going to be no trillion revenue from tariffs, by the way. No way, impossible. But that's what he says. Revenues to the US budget from import duties may approach $1 trillion by the end of the year, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated. The Treasury Department is receiving record revenues from tariffs, which, as I said, will amount to $300 billion a year, he said, speaking at the regular cabinet meeting chaired by the U.S. President Donald Trump. You approach me for saying that this amount is too small, and as usual, you are right. From July to August, we saw a significant jump, and I think that from August to September, we will see even a greater jump. So I think that we can exceed $500 billion and maybe approach $1 trillion. The head of the Treasury said, and this is shocking, by the way. How any responsible individual say we might approach $500 billion or maybe even $1 trillion? Are you kidding me? You are this easy manipulating with the numbers of 500 billion, by the way. Are you crazy? What the hell, man? This is nonsense, right? I'm surprised that U.S. economy is not completely destroyed, man. If people like this are running the things there, you're not gonna talk about 500 billion this way, like maybe or maybe not. What the hell, man? If you have no numbers, exact numbers, then say nothing. But you cannot be this irresponsible to throw numbers like this, 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 5 trillion. Crazy as I don't know, man. Crazy as hell, man. So yes, that's what they say. By the way, this is obviously propaganda narrative that this tariff is going to benefit tremendously and trillions going to come into federal budget. This is all lies, by the way. On initial stages, yes, revenues will rise a bit due to increased tariffs, but eventually, by the way, but U.S. economy will not benefit much of it because, well, tariffs will rise, yes. But you think what business is going to do, by the way, when they are importing some goods from these tariffed countries? They're going to increase prices, right? They're going to increase prices. That means they're going to sell less, right? They're going to sell less, and eventually they're going to pay less taxes. And eventually, by the way, some goods might become so expensive for U.S. customers that will just completely disappear from the shelves. And you might don't have alternatives there in U.S. to replace it, right? So in the long run, it will actually harm economy. Only positive thing that may come out from these tariffs, even if we can call it a positive thing, if you calculate everything, and I'm not an economist, but even my knowledge of the things is enough to understand, right, that, well, you might force actually businesses, manufacturers from other companies to transfer their manufacturing plants into US, right? That's the only way that you might actually, benefit, more or less seriously benefit from this tariff war and trade war, right? But yet again, it's not, you may not be successful even then, because yet again, I mean, US economy is vital, of course. It's a very important economy, and all the companies love to have a share in US economy, but there is the rest of the world, by the way, and there is the Chinese economy, and the Indian economy is in rise, by the way, and there is a Russian economy, and Africa, by the way, is on rise. There is South America. So there is a lot of places where these businesses might actually sell their goods, right? Not move their manufacturing plant into US, but to just diversify their sales. So this tariff and sanctions war, trade war, eventually may actually harm US tremendously. So what they are bragging about here? I don't know. Anyways, dear friends, a few more news. Well, today this 50% tariff on India from US is in force, right? The US government imposed 50% tariffs on India goods, one of their highest in the world, with the new duties taking effects on Wednesday and affecting more than 55% of Indian exports to the United States, Bloomberg reports. And by the way, I'm quite sure US companies, importer companies, already imported quite a significant volume of goods from India to build up stockpiles, right? But those stockpiles will run out probably in the next 2-3 months. And after that, you're going to see steep rise in prices on Indian goods, right? That you are used to buy. And after a couple of months' time, when stockpiles of the companies will be low, then, they will have no option but to increase prices, isn't it? Because new imports going to be tariffed 50%. And yes, get ready, by the way, if you are buying certain goods from India, for your business or for whatever reasons, you can also use this time of couple of months and make your own stockpile or something before prices will jump at least 50%, right? Price is going to jump at least 50%, right? Because company is not going to do business to get bankrupt, right? They will increase prices at least on the same level than that tariffs are. And eventually it's US consumers that are going to pay, by the way. And Indian leadership is very clear. that they're not gonna bow down to nobody, right? US, not to US, not to UK, not to anybody, by the way, in this world. India is a self-sustained civilization, one of the greatest and oldest civilizations that ever existed on this planet, right? And I mean, they're not gonna bow down to nobody. That's it, right? And well, BRICS member states are standing next to India, and the Russian leadership was very clear that Russian market is open for Indian goods. China, by the way, is also opening its markets, quite strict market to Indian goods. Other countries will do the same, by the way. So India will deal with this pressure from the US with help of its allies, for sure. But US consumers, they're gonna feel the heat, of course, because price is gonna jump, man. Give it 2-3 months max, and whatever stockpiles companies have will run out, and then they will have no option but to, well, increase prices on Indian goods. And the US isn't, or was at least until now, major export market for Indian companies, by the way, or Western companies that were producing goods in India, and there is quite a lot of those too. And RIA Novosti is also reporting, dear friends, that Denmark summons US diplomat over the influence campaign in Greenland. I said recently, I remember recently that, well, this topic of Greenland is not finished, and Washington's desire to gain control over their island and also over the Canada, by the way, at least indirect, maybe but control. And well, I was correct, and we have this information in the confirmation that Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen has summoned the US charged affairs following reports of US influence campaign in Greenland. Danish broadcaster DR, citing sources, reported on Wednesday that Americans close to US President Donald Trump are allegedly conducting secret work within the Greenlandic society to sow discord between the island and Denmark, collecting information about Greenlanders who are friendly and hostile to Washington in order to create an opportunity to annex Greenland to the US. Broadcaster emphasized that it was unable to determine whether the American specialists were acting on their own initiative or on orders. In turn, US government spokesman said that individuals, US citizens, may have interest in Greenland, but the US government does not control or direct the actions of individuals. Yeah, of course, by the way, CIA has nothing to do with it, or State Department, or the Pentagon. Are you kidding me, man? So yes, US is working, by the way. US is working, and it will take some time. I mean, CIA knows how to influence public opinion, right? And they will use their tools, of course, and give it a year or two, by the way, and they will prepare ground. Most likely, they will prepare ground for further move from Washington, from US, in direction of occupying this island. And Canada should be on a high alert too, by the way. If anybody thinks that, well, Trump forgot about Canada, no, it's not about Trump, by the way. It's about America First forces that want to play key role in, or it's about American political class, right? And the forces of influence that want to play key role in Northern Sea Route project, right? And to partner with Russia on more or less solid ground. US definitely has to have exclusive rights in terms of Greenland and Greenland shore line, coastal line, and also Canada, by the way, because Alaska alone is not enough in this case to become a key player like Russia is in terms of Northern Sea Route and the Arctic developments, right? They need Canada and Greenland, and they will continue to move in this direction. And what else do I have? Well, Exxon, by the way, according to Wall Street Journal, U.S. oil giant Exxon held secret talks with Rosneft about returning to Russia. Company pulled out in 2022, by the way, but apparently wants a piece of Far East Sakhalin-1 project. And allegedly, Trump was briefed on this plan, and it might be the truth, by the way. It might be the truth. During the recent summit in Alaska, in Anchorage, I'm quite sure two presidents spend more time discussing prospects of cooperation, including in energy field and in field of Northern Sea Route and Arctic development, than about Ukraine. I'm quite sure they spend more time talking, and delegations too, by the way, spend more time talking about potential areas of cooperation than they spend on Ukraine. So therefore, I'm not at all surprised that U.S. companies now openly sort of expressing their interest to come back to Russian market, and they are using their influence, I guess, to bring this information to White House too. And Trump was briefed on that. So yes, maybe it's a possibility for sure. And yet again, by the way, all U.S. has to do, there is a great prospects in terms of cooperation for two countries, Russia and U.S. And I want to see Russia, U.S. and India to be this crucial strategical triangle, by the way, that will play very important role for safety and security of this world, to make sure that no one country or no one force will dominate the world ever, right? We don't need that, and we'll understand what force I'm hinting at. It's China, isn't it? China is on rise, by the way, and China going to become like twice more powerful than US in the next 20, 30 years. And we definitely need some instruments in place to make sure that China will behave accordingly in at that time too, not just now, but when China will become like twice or three times more powerful than US ever was, right? When it will become an absolutely dominant force, or absolute monster force, by the way. And we should not allow it to dominate, right? And one way to do it, to keep China in check, is alliance of US, Russia, and India. And there is also many other ways of where cooperation between Russia and US can be on a very serious level. But to get there, right now, US has to pull out from this conflict. America First Forces have to pull out their country from this proxy war against Russia. They have to cut any ties with the globalists and globalist control regimes in terms of assisting them in this proxy war. And US has to agree on tremendous concessions to Russia to make sure that at least on state level, Moscow will seek no revenge. Of course, Kremlin cannot guarantee that private forces will not seek revenge. Private forces, private individuals, private companies, they will seek revenge forever, right? For all their harm that US did to Russia. But at least on the state level, can be reached an agreement that Moscow will seek no revenge if US will agree on tremendous concessions, and they should, by the way, they should, right? And then, yes, there is great opportunities for cooperation in many fields, by the way, not just in economical terms, but also on geopolitical, geostrategical terms. So let's see how will things develop, by the way. First, America First Forces have to truly gain control over their country and get rid of assets of globalists and so on, right? To make sure that they're not, this America First policy is not going to be derailed or sabotaged by these assets, right, of the Zionists, globalists, or whomever. And yes, let's see how things will develop. But U.S. companies, including giant energy companies, want to come back to Russian market. Not at all surprised. And this is it, dear friends, when it comes to news segment. Hopefully you did find it informative and useful, and live stream is 2 hours and 20 minutes. Wow. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And there was a super chat, dear friends. Wow, time flies, by the way. I did not notice that this live stream was this long. There was a super chat, dear friends. Let me react on the super chat first, and then of course I will join community chat and try my best to be informative in my answers to the on questions and comments that will be directed to me. So let me highlight, dear friends. There was a 2 super chat on Rumble. And dear friends, let me remind you that you can use the super chat feature on Rumble to send your question or the comment if you want to, and also to support my work, to donate to this project. This is one super chat. Viper, thank you very much for a $5 donation on Rumble and for your super chat there on Rumble. And the question is from Viper: Trump supporters are the America First movement. Do you consider us hostile to Russians? No. America First forces are America First forces. I see them as to be patriotic forces, right? So pro-American forces. And if they are pro-American forces, then they will not consider us to be enemies. They will see us as potential allies and partners. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, you said about yourself that you are part of this movement of America First, right? And therefore, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and your fellow citizens probably don't consider us to be your enemies, right? Because if your policies are based on American interests of the American people, then you will acknowledge there is a tremendous potential for both countries, both peoples in cooperation, and there is nothing to benefit from hostility, right? Am I correct? So therefore, if you don't consider us to be your enemies, I mean, America First people, America First force, then why would we consider you to be an enemy? You are not, right? This is my understanding, and I think I'm correct, by the way. I don't think you consider America First forces consider us to be enemies. And there are many public figures, by the way, that are behind this MAGA movement, right? They are openly expressing their opinions, right? And they are opposing this war against Russia. And they want US to get out of that, right? So I think I'm correct on this matter. But yet again, correct me, Viper, if I'm wrong. But I think you are not considering me to be, or us to be your enemies, and therefore, why should we consider you, America First people, to be our enemies? I mean, absolutely not. That's my answer. Thank you very much for your question and donation, Viper. And there was also, dear friends, donation from and super chat on Rumble from. Let me highlight in a sec. From Alan Richard. Thank you very much, Alan, for your $20 donation and the super chat on Rumble. And commentary from Alan is, thanks, Levana. Good show. Many of us in the West are looking to Russia, China, and the BRICS to sort this world out. We are victims of this system too. I agree with you, Alan. I always say in my updates that I consider Western societies to be a hostage of the Western ruling class and to be a victim, even if a majority of societies they are being indoctrinated in Russia hate, in all sorts of narratives or ideas. Nevertheless, I consider them to be a victim of the Western ruling class, right? And I guess you are on the same page with me on this topic. So yes, and thank you very much, Alan, for your kind words, sir. I hope I will improve in the future, but I definitely try to make informative content, by the way. So when you watch my videos and then you watch any news shows or anywhere, you will know topics that will be mentioned in those news shows, and you will also have a pro-Russian take on those topics, right? I'm not going to say that majority of people here in Russia are on the same page as I am on all the issues, but there is a quite high chance that I'm not alone, right? I cannot be only one that thinks this way. There should be many, many more people here in Russia that thinks about certain topics in exactly the way that I do, right? And this is case in every country, by the way. It's barely possible that one person might have absolutely unique opinions constantly on everything, right? No. Significant part of society probably thinks same way on this topic or that. So I'm trying my best, by the way. I'm trying my best and will continue to do so. Thank you very much, Alan, for your donation of $20 and for your super chat on Rumble and your question and the comment. And dear friends, there was also right now another super chat. Let me highlight this super chat also from Rumble. Just a sec, dear friends, I will make a copy of the super chat. And this is the super chat. Well, time did fly, isn't it? Time did fly, man. So this is a super chat, dear friends. Miss Me with Ether, thank you very much for your dollar donation and the super chat on Rumble. And comment from Miss Me with Ether is there is a Brookings paper, Which Path to Persia. It's worth the reader. It literally tells you step-by-step process. Thank you very much for recommendation. I believe I have heard about it, but have not read. Otherwise, I would know. I would remember better. So therefore, thank you very much for recommendation, for your comment and donation with me with Ether. I appreciate your support. And dear friends, let me engage with the community chat now. I will scroll through chat, and if I spot a question or the comment directed to me, I will definitely react on it. And thank you very much, dear friends, for being here this long. I am shocked. By the way, it's 2.5 hours this stream is going. Wow. I did not notice, man. Sometimes, yes, time just flies. And so, dear friends, I see comment from Nikos. Nikos is commenting, Levan, did you see Scott Ritter's debate with Matt Tardier? If not, you should. Scott did not hold back, and he used the colorful language you use to describe the Western elites like Tardier. I will. Thank you very much for recommendation, Nikos. I have not seen the video, but I will definitely today. I will check on that conversation. Thank you for recommendation. Also, dear friends, Nidish Kumar is commenting. Levan, do fund raising stream 4 times in the first few weeks of a month. After that, I don't think people have enough money to donate. Do fundraising streams 4 times in the first few weeks. You mean twice a week? There is only 4 weeks in a month though. So I mean, if you mean like twice a week, I may do fundraising like Saturday, Sunday, on weekends, maybe. Thank you for recommendation, Nidisha. I will think about it. I will, of course, I'm interested in decisions that are best for this survivability of this project, isn't it? So thank you. And also Nidish is commenting, Levan, how much naval blockade can Venezuela handle without economic collapse? Does they have other routes to trade? They can trade. Of course, nowadays even Colombia is less hostile to Venezuela than used to be. Right there can be other routes to use. But in terms of economics, by the way, Venezuela is in trouble, big trouble for a long time now. For a long time, people are living on survival mode constantly. Many people, majority, so they know how to survive, and probably a blockade itself would not be that effective. Maritime blockade of Venezuela would not be that effective, although, of course, Caracas will lose significant income because they would not be able to export their oil, for example, right? That makes most of their income for Venezuela. But I think US will escalate beyond just a blockade, maritime blockade. They will probably escalate between Guyana and Venezuela. They will use their assets inside the Venezuela for destabilization. Probably they will send private military companies, and already did, to begin some sabotage operations inside the Venezuela. They have many tools. And I think US will get engaged kinetically. They will start, bombing and attacking Venezuelan forces, government offices, everybody basically, and in short time. Only way US might be deterred is if China will do something about it, but I don't think China is in a position to compete with US in South America. So therefore, it might be very quick regime change in Venezuela. Depends how organized society will be to resist the invading force and to resist the recolonization, by the way. I think very many people in Venezuela probably are not happy with the government, how government runs their things. And I can understand that there is economical collapse basically already, and for many years in Venezuela. Some will say this is due to Western sanctions and the sabotage of companies, private companies that are linked to US. Could be true, of course, but nevertheless, for ordinary people, by the way, they will go into that much of the details, why it's this and that? They know that they see what they see, right? There is a poverty everywhere, very little income, high crime rate. So they must be very much unhappy with the way that things are. But another question is, would they prefer recolonization of the Venezuela or not? If they will prefer anything to get rid of poverty and the hardship and the regime that many might blame and will blame for everything, then regime change gonna be a quick one for US, right? Relatively. Although some fighting in the forestry, they're gonna continue for a long time, right? So US might suffer some serious losses there. But if society are extremely against recolonization, then US would not succeed. No matter how unpopular regime is of Maduro, US would not succeed because people would not support incursion of any sort, right? And they will resist. And I don't think US is in a position to hesitate massive losses in Venezuela, by the way. If US was attacked, that's a different story, right? If this war was existential for the US, but Venezuela, by the way, I mean, I don't think US society is in a position to tolerate thousands and thousands of deaths of US military personnel in some freaking jungles somewhere, right? So it all depends on people of Venezuela, by the way, how they feel about prospect of being recolonized by US. If they are okay with that, then US probably will succeed relatively easily against Venezuela, and they will then continue on other countries. I mean, Cuba is in tremendous danger, of course. Brazil is in danger, by the way. Colombia is in danger. Mexico itself is in danger, right? So nowadays, US barely has good relationships with anybody. You know. Nikos is also commenting, Levan, I don't disagree with you that Ukrainians are using Estonia for drones, but have you considered that they have a ship nearby, St. Petersburg? I say this because they need to search for it. Well, if they, I mean, technically speaking, Nikos, of course, they can use vessel too. I mean, some bigger bulk carrier or something can be used there for the drone launches, of course, and this vessel can be stationed even in neutral waters, let's say, of Baltics or in territorial waters of any NATO member state there for many, many months, right? They can have supplies and everything and operate like that. But Russian side probably will spot such a vessel and will take action, especially if vessel was in neutral waters. So therefore, I can see technical possibilities that some vessels can be used as drone carriers. Technically, this can be done, or tried at least. But if that was the case, then Russian militaries will probably take care of that vessel straight away. So therefore, I think most likely ground is used of these NATO countries, either Estonia or Finland or maybe Latvia, by the way. Or I think ground of Baltic states are used for these drone strikes on Russian regions in the northern latitudes, including Leningrad region. Although, as you said, I mean, of course, vessels can be used also for that purpose, but I think they will find it very difficult to hide this vessel from Russia. Gracie Knoll is asking, Russia is as soon Russia is targeting all rail lines within Ukraine, and there are any means of supplying electricity as well. Well, Russia is not targeting all means of electricity generation. Russia is not targeting nuclear power plants, by the way. And Kiev regime's controlled territory, there is 2 or 3 nuclear power plants still, right? And Russia never target those power plants, and never will, right? When it comes to other sources of energy, electricity generation, Russia is not targeting also power lines and energy objects that are supplying with their electricity these nuclear power plants, to make sure that cooling system and everything on those power plants are working in good order, right? Because Russia don't want no nuclear disaster to happen anywhere, right? When it comes to railway network, Russia does make strikes time to time on railway stations when there is a military convoys, military trains there. On some other parts, right, railway was targeted too, but one should keep in mind that to rebuild railway is relatively easy. Engineers can rebuild. I mean, you can target railway line this morning, and after 3-4 hours, railway will be operational again. So that does not really make much sense to target railways themselves in a big way and use very expensive missiles for that, right? But whenever there is a military convoy, military train on a railway station or somewhere in a depot or something, then Russian side, there was many occasions, isn't it, that Russian side is targeting, in that case, those trains. But attacks on railways themselves don't really make much sense in terms of military objectives, because they can be rebuilt very easily in a couple of hours' time, right? And you're not going to waste a multi-million-dollar Iskander missile, for example, to disrupt railway just for 2 hours or 3 hours. It makes no sense, right? But if there is a train if you are targeting train, then yes, that's quite sensible stuff to do. So that's my answer. So Russia does targets military trains, and Russia does targets energy facilities, but not all, because we don't want a nuclear disaster to happen, isn't it? So therefore, nuclear power plants, and there are also power stations and power lines that provide MPPs with electricity are not targeted. Only some might say it's a fair game, Kiev regime and NATO are targeting Russian nuclear power plants, so it's a fair game if Russia will target nuclear power plants on Kiev-controlled territory. But no, man, on emotions, if you are angry, you can say something like that. But you don't mean that, isn't it? So, wow, 3 hours. Constant talk, by the way. It's not easy. Excuse me. I will. What the hell? Water, please. Dear friends, maybe I will end stream right now. It's 3 hours and I barely can talk. I see question from Christopher Wallis. Fuel shortage in Russia? No, dear friend. There is no fuel shortage in Russia, or shortage of anything, really. Don't believe Western propaganda. There is literally shortage of nothing. In Russia, you can buy anything you want, whenever you want, right? Also, Christopher is commenting. Luan, care to comment on the gas price in Russia? Just a sec. How much we pay monthly? We have electricity plate, by the way. We don't have a gas plate. But when we were living in Dmitro, monthly bill was on gas. Oh, really? So when we were renting here, by the way, in Moscow, in this apartment, there is no gas. There is electric. How should I say? Electric. как это называется, Ань? Electric plates where you cook stuff, right? So therefore, because we use electricity, electricity prices in buildings like this is very low also. But when we were living in Dmitro, and we moved a year ago, by the way, from Dmitro, Moscow region to Moscow. And there in Dmitro, we were paying for gas and price, I mean, bill was so low that renter, owner of their flat that we were renting from, he was not even taking money from us. He was paying for himself, so it's very little, right? Just my wife is searching for exact data how much cubometer of gas costs. How much is that? Or okay, how much we pay for electricity every month? Now, approximately. Seriously? About $20-30 a month? Seriously? Yeah, I myself shocked a little bit. My wife is controlling all that financial stuff, so therefore she knows I don't. So yes, monthly, for example, for electricity, we pay right now about maximum $30, like 2,000 rubles max, right? And this is, by the way, free room flat, right? Maybe 4 if you count this part also. So yeah, it's not really that expensive, by the way. Definitely not as expensive as it is in European countries. And well, dear friends, I'm quite sure, dear friends, I missed some of your questions, sir. My apologies, sir. My apologies for that. Сколько? Кубометр? So 1 cubic meter of gas, by the way, natural gas, is 9 or 10 rubles in Moscow, and 9 or 10 rubles are in dollars. How much that would be? How many cents 10 rubles are? About 8 cents, right? For 1 cubic meter of gas. That's the price. Here in Moscow, approximate. And so, dear friends, yes, I have to end this very long live stream. Thank you all for being here this long. Many thanks for your comments, for your attention, for your time, for your support. Many thanks to members of community that donated during the stream to this project. Have a wonderful day, dear friends. And for members of our Patreon and Boosty community, I will say that most likely today I will make extra content. And dear friends, I have a plan. Let's see if weather will intervene or not, but I have a plan to make a video in one amazing place, by the way, absolutely amazing place here in Moscow. I have not filmed there in the past, so hopefully it will work out. And later on today, I will publish news segment and also some surroundings from that very nice place. Hopefully you will like the video. I will post it, of course, for Patreon and Boosty communities. So, okay, that's been said, dear friends, I will end the stream now. Thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful day and take care.